Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today I'm gonna introduce you to the tool called Grease Pencil in Blender. So this is considered an object that could be a cube or even a curve. Okay, so I can find it in the Add menu in here. Okay, Grease Pencil, and then we got several options, and I'm gonna start the blank option. So keep in mind that this series of lessons will be aimed not for beginners, but maybe more something like an intermediate level. So I'm gonna link in descriptions everything I use that has already been explained in the previous lessons. Okay, so at the moment you can see the Grease Pencil object here in our outliner. You can see its origin point here, the orange dot in the center of the scene. And what I can do now is access a new mode only available with a Grease Pencil object selected, which is the draw mode. From here, I can now draw whatever I want. Okay, because the Grease Pencil is 2D tool. What the options are from now on, you got all the tools here on your left. Okay, so draw tool, the fill tool, an eraser, and some other tool I'm gonna go over throughout the lessons. Now what you can do once you've got one of these tools selected is change its settings here at the top of your 3D view. You also got the same options available here in the Properties panel in the Active Tool and Workspace Settings tab. Okay, and you've got also the same thing here in this part of the screen in the Tool section. You can change the settings whichever way you want. Okay, now you know where to find them all. I use them depending on where I am in my project. So the first thing is type of pen or brush you're using. Okay, depending on whichever you choose, your line will be different. Okay, then of course you got a color or material that is assigned to your Grease Pencil strokes. You've got two ways to do it, either by material, so I can go here, now I have a material, and if I change this material, it will affect all the strokes that has the same material assigned, as if it was a 3D object. So if I change the color here of this material, you can see that all the strokes I've made share the same color. And you got a stroke type of material and also a fill type. Okay, meaning that if you got a closed shape, it will be filled with this color here. Okay, at the moment the alpha is at 0, so we can't see the fill. But now that the alpha is at 1, you can see that all the closed shapes have a fill. And if your shape is like that, not closed, of course, it will create a segment, let's say a segment, in here to have the fill option. And again, it will affect all of my strokes that share the same material. The other option was the vertex color option. This you only see when you switch at least to a material preview mode. Okay, and if that's activated, then you can choose a color for each of your strokes. So that means you can change the color of each of them very easily, like that, on the fly almost. But then, as each of them has a different color, you can't drive the color with just something as simple as when you are modifying the color here on the material. That's the upside and downside of both these techniques. But then you've got here a tool which is called Tint, which allows you to tint a color. So let's say I'm gonna choose this kind of bright purple here. And now if I tint the color of my vertex color strokes, you can see that I can change their color. Okay, now that we've seen the type of strokes, the color options, now we've got the paint bucket. I think it's fairly straightforward because it works the same way a paint bucket in any other drawing tool, meaning that if you've got a closed shape, if I create a new material here, let's create a new one with no stroke and just a fill, and this I will deactivate the fill. That means I can have, let's say here, something closed, and then choose the second material, okay, with something like that, and then paint with this. Okay, that's the paint bucket. Then you've got the eraser tool that will either erase a point, a stroke. So a point will be just a part of it, a stroke will be the entire stroke, and dissolve will just remove, like smoothly, a part of the strokes, like that. Okay? The tint option, we've already seen that, and the cutter is used to remove a part of overlapping strokes, meaning if I wanted this to be closed like a real circle, I can select what is outside of it, like that, and then it will just remove those two tiny bits. Okay? And then of course you can create like lines, and then you have to press Enter on your keyboard to validate the stroke. Okay? Got something like squares, rectangles, and spheres. Okay, that was the introduction to some things you can do with the grease pencil, but wait, there is more. In the object data properties of this grease pencil object is that you can add several layers. You can hide the one I was working on, add a new one, you can rename it second layer, let's say, and then I can keep on drawing on top of that, meaning that you can have, for example, a layer for the strokes, and maybe a layer behind that for the colors or the fill, that will have this material assigned to it, and use the bucket tool to create those little shapes. Okay? That's really great. You can change the assignment of any part of the grease pencil object, because the last thing I wanted to show is that because it is an object, it has, like a cube or curve would have, an edit mode. You can edit any of its vertices, okay? And the best way to do it would be to select it and to activate here the proportional editing that will allow you to move any vertices that is in the circle here that you can see. So this allows for much more smoother moves than if you do like a normal move like that. Great thing about it as well is that you can also use a sculpt mode on a grease pencil object, okay? And then you can move also the points of this object, okay? Which is great. Another really cool thing that maybe you have seen, but here you will see it much more better, is that although it is a 2D shape, we are still in a 3D environment, meaning that my object is in a 3D space. As it is an object, I can move it, rotate it, for example. Okay, I can even scale it, like that. Let's turn it so that it stands straight. Okay, let's place it in here. And so I can also duplicate one, like that. Okay, And so at the moment, the option for the creation of the grease pencil, if I go back to the draw mode, okay, they are in here. So this means it starts at the origin of my world, so at the intersection of all my axes, X, Y, Z, okay? 3D cursor, meaning that if I move the 3D cursor here, when I will draw, it will draw where the 3D cursor is, okay? Then you've got a surface, which is absolutely great. Now, you can see here, my stroke, my line is drawn on top of my 3D surface. Okay, and you can have a more complex shape, more complex than this cube, and then you will see, you will have that. At the moment, I'm using a fill material, but let's go back to our line like that, which is much better, and you can see it's constrained to the surface of this object. You can see there is a little bit of offset here, and you can change it in here. I can go back to something a bit smaller, and remember, take into account the fact that this does not count for the thickness of your line. What you can choose here, changing the radius of your lines. Okay, now it's a bit thicker. If your offset here is, let's say, at 0, that means that part of my stroke might be inside my 3D model, as you can see here. So it's a bit of a setup, but I'm sure you will manage to make it. Okay. Then you can have stroke parameter with 3 things: all points, end points, and first points. Meaning now that if I create a stroke, it will have as a start point the stroke that is beneath it. So at the moment it's at all points, so it will start either at the point which is here, and you can see it's here, or this one here. That could be very useful to create something like a tree, you know. Okay. Then once you have set up this, I will go back to my 3D cursor, okay, which I will move around here. You also have the constraints of the orientation of your drawing. Okay, at the moment it's set to view, so if you want to visualize that a bit better, you can go in here and activate here the canvas. Okay, and this is its transparency, so now you can see how my grease pencil drawing will be oriented, meaning it's following my view. So if I draw something like that, okay, it was oriented where the view was. If I draw it like this, okay, you can see. You can also constrain it to one axis, the front plane, so the X and Z axis. You can see that my grid is now following this, okay, which is not straight. Why is that? This is because in object mode, I have changed the rotation of my object. My object rotation is -0.5 and 25 is like that, okay? If I set it to 0, okay, like that, now you can see that this plane is aligned exactly with this X and Z axis. What I'm gonna do is hide this quick vessel object, okay, and move the 3D cursor to the world origin so that you can see it's really aligned. You can also then, on the grease pencil objects, I'm just gonna hide all the layers, add a new one which is empty. Okay, so in draw mode, if I change that, you also got the side, okay, orientation, which is constrained to the Y and Z axis, and you've also got the top, like that, and then you can draw, and this, your drawing will always be constrained to the orientation of this canvas. You've got also a cursor constraints, so in draw mode, again, if you use the grease pencil, you can see that if I have the cursor option selected here as a referential, then your grid will always orient itself where you have set the 3D cursor in space. So hopefully it was clear enough. That was my introduction to the grease pencil tool. Oh, wait, there is more. Yes, of course, because let's start this all again. I'm just gonna hide this grease pencil, all the object in the scene, actually, and a new grease pencil object. I choose always blank, but if you want, you can choose either stroke or monkey, meaning that choosing stroke, you will already have a stroke already done with layers like lines and colors, and also already materials that you can choose from. And the monkey version is, of course, a grease pencil equivalent to the monkey's head in 3D. Okay? Okay, that's it. Let's set that back in here. Add a blank grease pencil. Okay. And draw mode, set this to view and origin. Okay. Maybe I'm gonna set this to the front plane. Like that. Okay. So that when I draw it's over here. But something that is really cool. In here, what I usually use as the animation windows. If you go to the top sheet, in here in this drop down menu, you've got grease pencil, and you can see here that it's already have an animation key, meaning that you can animate a grease pencil object. If I switch to the next frame, okay, frame 2, I can still see my drawing, but I can draw something else. Okay? There is no change at the moment. Why is that? Because I haven't on my timeline activated the auto key function. Now it's activated. Okay? I'm gonna remove my grease pencil stroke to another one, and you can see now that I have a second key added, and my animation, I'm gonna remove the canvas at the moment, has changed. Okay? Now you could do like, well, let's say this is not a really great animation, but you will understand the points. If I set this to 10 frames and apply it, now you've got an animated 2D element within Blender in a 3D space. And you can create keys not only by drawing another frame, but also by using, if you want, the edit mode. If I move that just slightly like that, you can see on frame 4, now I have a new key. Okay? Like that. And I can also use the sculpt mode like this, and you can see I have an added key on frame 8, which is now part of my animation. So this is a very powerful tool. I'm looking forward to using it in this project. In the next video, what we're gonna talk about is the design of our space. So we're gonna be using the grease pencil for that, and of course, because it's a 2D drawing tool, I recommend you have a graphic tablet because it's easier to draw, but know that I've only used my mouse to do whatever I did so far, so you can also follow with the mouse if you only have a mouse. Okay, so hope this was interesting and that you learned enough things to start on. Of course, we'll use this knowledge much better in the next video. Have a good evening everyone, I'll see you next time, bye.